Hello, my name is Nicolaas Schaper. I'm an internist physician who used to work at the University Hospital of Maastricht. I'm recently retired, but still involved with the university. And I'm still involved in diabetic foot disease as chair of the International Working Group on the Diabetic Foot and as chair of the International Symposium on the Diabetic Foot. And so I'm very honored to share with you some of my thoughts in this conversation with diabetic foot experts in Europe. I've been involved for more than 30 years now in diabetes care and in diabetic foot care, and since the last 25 years in the International Working Group on the Diabetic Foot. And I was asked if I thought that there is enough awareness of the impact of diabetic foot disease on health services and our patients. And my answer is no. There is still so much room for improvement. The diabetic foot used to be, as Andrew Boulton always beautifully said, the Cinderella of diabetes. Well, that clearly has changed, I think, in the last decade. People have become more aware, both healthcare workers and patients, at least in my country, of its importance. And actually, patients are in my country now even more afraid of losing their leg than of some of the other complications of diabetes. But still, healthcare workers see it as a very lowbrow, not very sexy problem, and they tend to underestimate it. Because of its high costs, it is nowadays a bit more easy to convince the bureaucrats of its importance. But to convince my colleagues of the huge impact diabetic foot disease has and its comorbidities on quality of life of my patients, no, that's still an area where we have to go in the future. So what's the biggest advantage in the management of diabetic foot disease in my career? Well, when I started, there was actually very little information around. There were about 30 publications, if you go to PubMed, on diabetic foot ulceration each year. And the knowledge base was very thin and mostly expert-based opinion. So it was very difficult to set up a multidisciplinary team where we could get everybody on board and on the same page because there was so little info. And I think the biggest advantage is twofold. First, that we have seen a clear increase in better quality research in this area, both from the epidemiological side, from the etiological side, but also from the treatment side. So we know now so much more than 30 years ago. It's unbelievable almost. So yes, major advances there. And that has enabled us to translate that into guidelines. And these guidelines, of course, can act as the agenda of setting up multidisciplinary teams, which finally are the biggest advantage and advance in diabetic foot disease, because these teams clearly have shown to reduce amputations by 40 to 80%. My biggest challenge in this pathway was actually to convince my colleagues and bosses, in particular in the first 10, 15 years, that diabetic foot disease was a relevant problem. Because from a university point of view, it was a lowbrow, not very sexy, smelly problem, which could be easily solved if you ask a surgeon. So what should an internist and then a chronologist, who is specialized in approaching disease states from a systemic point of view, that's one approach you could say, characterize endocrinology, what should I do in this area? And actually, that's exactly the reason why I find this area so fascinating, because you need a systemic approach to these patients. There are so many organs involved and they all interact with each other so uniquely that at the end of the day, you have a new disease, relatively new disease, which we didn't have maybe 50, 60 years ago, because patients used to die before they could develop an ulcer. And now we have this horrible problem of diabetic foot disease. But convincing my colleagues that this was a problem, that was a major difficulty. And it's only in the last 10, 15 years, by showing them that actually there is now evidence showing them that we could do research that could be published in highly respected journals, and that we could also have output on that side, that has changed. So would I choose the same career again? Yes, yes. It has been a fantastic journey, from starting almost from scratch off, from the work of Jan Appelquist, from the work of Boulton, and of course the King's College colleagues. They all helped us in Europe, all over the world, in setting up systems to truly try to help our patients and to move the subject forward. So yes, I would choose it again, because it gave me so many opportunities. And it made me happy, because that was the final question. What makes you happy? It made me happy because it enabled me to set up new things. I like to do that. It enabled me to work in a team. Working in a diabetic foot team, multidisciplinary team, was for me each week. We met twice, each week twice. It was a joy. Acting together with so many different specialities, surgeons, vascular surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, infectious disease doctors. I learned so much of all these people. So I thought that was a unique experience. And finally, doing the dance, the tango with my patients. It takes two to tango. That was fantastic. So yes, I am a clinical researcher. I am a teacher in my university, but most of all, I'm still a doctor who loves to and who enjoys to work together with my patients. Of course, there's much more in life than just work. So what makes me happy? Also nature, hiking in the mountains, in the beautiful nature, even the beautiful small hills of the Netherlands, music and books, and last but not least, my family. Thank you very much.